Welcome back to page 121. Okay, we're back in Traveler of the Third Imperium, one of my favorite books of all Traveler. And we're going to take a look at a planet that has really caught my interest, and that is the planet Reference. Reference is in the core sector. It's in the Cadian subsector. And there we have the Cadian map. And right down here in the lower right corner is Reference. What the heck's the big deal about Reference? Well, Reference is just kind of a cool idea. Reference is a place where a lot of history and intelligence of the Third Imperium is stored. Here we go. Reference is located at the nominal center of the Imperium and is almost exactly on the central plane of the galactic disk. It is the administrative headquarters of the Imperial Interstellar Scout Service and the primary data storage archive of the Imperium. That's pretty important. It's the Library of Alexandria for the Imperium. The world has a long and convoluted history and has been known by many names. Okay, here comes some butchered Volani for you. The Volani called it Shishudarstar, which was apparently the name of a despised member of their nobility. They used the planet to test new weapons and weapon systems, which explains many of the black craters and burn marks on the surface. The Volani eventually installed an extensive data storage network deep in the bowels of the planet, upon which they stored a copy of the Argushigi Admagulasha Bilanidin, the AAB, the sum total of Volani historical knowledge. During the Interstellar Wars, the Salamani dismissed the planet as a worthless rock ball and evacuated it, but otherwise left it intact, never realizing what it contained. That's a big swing and a miss. Refugees from various worlds occupied its subterranean warrens during the long night and called the planet Mamatava, but the colony died out after a few centuries. During the era of the Silean Federation, the planet was renamed Adkine for the corporation that purchased it. Adkine eventually went bankrupt, and once again the world was left barren. The world was then rediscovered by the Scout Service in the early 300s during the reign of Porifia. The Scouts were in the midst of the first survey, and when investigated Adkine, they found the Volani archives. This was a monumental discovery, but it took the Scouts years to decipher and replicate the computer interfaces needed to access the data in the archives. During the process, the IISS decided the world would also be an ideal location for the storage of an Imperial archive. They renamed the world Reference and immediately began to assemble a powerful computer network substrate which would serve as the backbone of the project. The project evolved over time from being a strictly data-oriented project to a dedicated storage site for artifacts and samples found throughout Imperial space and beyond. Reference is now the home for the Scout Service, but it's also home for the Core Research Station Alpha and the prestigious University of Adkine, which specializes in astronomy, physics, cosmology, planetology, and self-ontology. The capital of Reference is called Encyclopediopolis. The city center including a grid of towers, each of which represents an Imperial sector, and organized in the same order they are found in charted space. Each tower is 1 kilometer long, 100 meters wide, and a variable number of stories high, depending on how much space is needed to record all the information. On the outskirts of Encyclopediopolis, there are additional towers devoted to the Vargir Extents, Aslan Hyrat, Zodani Consulate, Hive Federation, the 2000 Worlds, and the Salamani Sphere. And they're also organized as are found in the map of charted space. There are also hundreds of warehouses on the southern periphery of the city that are used for storage of items too dangerous, obsolete, or in many cases too large to store within the borders of the city. While the Encyclopediopolis facilities are made open to Imperial citizens on a case-by-case basis, the vast majority of users are accredited scholars, students working on postgraduate theses, members of the Scout Service, and other Imperial officials. So it's a pretty important place. You've got all this knowledge from all the way from the first Imperium, straight through, with a gap, of course, during the long night when nobody knew it was there, and the Ramshackle Empire, and then the long night. But then you have it rediscovered during the Third Imperium, and you have all the information backfilled because this is a really convenient place to store everything. I love the idea of Reference. I just thought this was a really cool idea. And I could just see, even though it's in core and that's the quote civilized unquote area, I could see a lot of adventure hooks using Reference. Reference is a key strategic resource for the Imperium, as well as funded by the Imperial Navy and Scout Service. 2 full naval squadrons are present in the system, and the Scouts maintain a fleet of auxiliary ships and a decommissioned Azanti High Lightning class ship, and that is reserved for important operations. The official name of the cruiser is that of the Ancient Vlani Archives. I'm not going to try AAB again, but the Scouts call her the Librarian, or Libby for short. In addition to these, there are almost always elements of the core sector fleet present in the system. In addition to serving as custodians of Encyclopediopolis, the Scout base includes extensive training facilities and a specialized fleet of X-boats and tenders. When new and important discoveries are made, the X-boat fleet is activated and its spacecraft are sent to capital and other key worlds. The last major data dump through reference occurred in 1065 when the Second Grand Imperial Survey was completed. The important thing to remember is this: it's constantly being updated. Just because it's the last major dump a couple of hundred years ago does not mean it's not getting constant updates. It is. Here's a nice layout of Encyclopediopolis. I love the idea of just an entire world based on knowledge, on collecting the knowledge of the Imperium. The old Star Trek episode, the original series, The Lights of Zatar, they had the Memory Alpha outpost where all the Federation's knowledge was collected, and I thought of that as soon as I was reading this. Now we have second reference, and this is just a rumor that there is a second reference somewhere, but nobody knows where. And the idea of backing up a nearly complete copy of the data stored is absolutely a good idea. And anything on a hard drive, you want on some kind of backup, a thumb drive or something, because all of us have had computers die now and again, and you don't want to be out without the information. But this goes on to point out that no one knows where it is, and you couldn't duplicate some of the artifacts and other things that would be found at reference anyway. And here we get a nice look at the Libby. This is a nice look at an Azanti High Lightning, updated for Mongoose 2nd. She operates at tech level 15 with a thrust 2 and a jump 5. And then we get a nice look at all the power requirements, everything, the running costs. 33,000 hit point hull points, and then some nice top-down maps of a venerable old traveler ship. So I love this section. I read this over when I first read this book, before I had the physical copy of it, and I thought, I got to do a video on reference, and then I just kind of let it sit for a while. Then I wanted to get myself a hard copy of this book, which I did, and now I've done a quick look at reference. So lots of adventure hooks suggest itself. Right from there, you could be used as a group of scouts who are sent out to retrieve something specifically for reference, or to collect some information that's already been compiled elsewhere in the galaxy that you have to bring back to reference safely without letting it fall in anybody else's hands. All kinds of other adventure hooks that I can think of just based on that one little entry. So there you have it. That's it for today on page 121. Let me know what you think, if you like reference, if you've used it in your campaign, and if so, how. But that's it for today on page 121. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.